What's going on, guys? Larry Brown here. Happy to be with you today. We got a little blizzard going on. It's nighttime and I figured I'd come down and record a video because it's something that came across my Instagram feed that I wanted to talk about a little bit. But before we do that, I'm encouraging you guys to like and subscribe to the channel. Again, I'm still pumping out plenty of content. Fell a little bit short on my 3 videos a week in February. So I'm going to try to pick it up in March going forward. Something sustainable so I can keep getting you guys some good information from a meathead's point of view who's been in the trenches about several years now. More than several. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. Eccentric thinking, or thinking about eccentrics if you want to reverse it up a little bit. So what are eccentrics? If you're new to the game, basically you have 2 phases of lifting weights. You have the concentric phase, which is raising, and then you have the eccentric phase, which is lowering. Now, studies over time, the eccentric is the tried and true way to control the most weight, and it was thought of to cause the most muscle damage, right? That's what we want. We want muscle damage on the way down to tear up the fibers so they can recover, right? It's also known as the lengthened phase, basically where the muscle is at its most lengthened position, where it's at its most stretched position, right? So there is a gentleman on Instagram, and I'm going to butcher his name. I apologize ahead of time. His name is Menno Henselman, and he put up a study that slowly lowering your weights, no effect on size or strength, less power, new study finds. All right, so I'm going to get this out the way. I'm not the biggest study guy in the world. I'm not the biggest fan of studies or anything like that. I think they hold a lot of good truth. I think they hold a lot of good information. But like with any piece of information, we take it as people and then we go to the whole other side with it. And we just take it as gospel, apply it to our training 100% and not realizing that training is more of an art sometimes than an exact science. So it's not really math, even though a lot of math is involved. So I wanted to jump into this because in this study, it's a lot of good points. It basically says that, there's reduced gains in jump height, which is a common trait of having a lot of power, because it is true. That's why the test of how high you can jump is inside of the NFL Combine. These guys want to see how high how much power they can generate from the ground. So that's very good for athletic purposes. But if we're talking about bodybuilding, if we're talking about strength building, eccentrics can help you. Now, the study is saying there's not a whole lot of difference between, dive bombing a lot of your lifts or controlling the eccentrics. There's not a whole lot of difference between it. But what I want to focus on today is, and he says in his Instagram post that you do want to control your eccentrics. So I want to get that out the way. He's not saying, just ditch them totally. He's saying to control your eccentrics. And I'm saying the same thing. Now, the reason I say that is not necessarily for muscle growth or anything like that. What I'm saying is that I want people to think about a couple of different things. The first thing I want you all to understand is that if we're going to be lifting weights a long time, we need to protect the integrity of our joints. We need to protect the integrity of our ligaments, because tearing a ligament is a little bit different than tearing a muscle. The muscle can repair pretty fast upon the severity of the tear. You X out a ligament and you're done for months. We're talking big time. And then we're not even counting rehab, which can take a very long time depending upon the severity of that injury. So I want you all to understand that not dive bombing and controlling your eccentrics at least saves you wear and tear on your joints. Now, here's where I kind of conflict with myself, is that I am a lifter of of power. I like to lift fast. I'm not a big eccentric guy. I am very much a smooth, control the downward. Don't get me wrong. I control the downward, but I'm also not counting my eccentrics, right? I've even gotten away from prescribing eccentrics for a lot of my programming clients because it just, if you've been at this for a while, you kind of know your cadence, your sweet spot for lifting. So I try not to make it so robotic where you're just, and 1, 2, 3, 4, up. I don't want that. I want a nice smooth motion. I want something that you're comfortable with. And basically I want you at the most stretched position where you can come back up powerfully. All right. That's what I'm looking for inside of my clients. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. But if you like this top that I got on, I got this from Gasp Official. This is probably one of my most favorite brands inside of the fitness and bodybuilding industry. You've seen Branch Warren, Johnny Jackson, so many people inside of this iconic brand, and I want you all to go over and use the discount code GASP15. So if you see something on sale that you like, please pick it up. No discount code necessary. But if you see something full price and you want to pick it up, please use GAS15. But again, use GAS15. Use it. Some of the best bodybuilding and fitness clothing you will ever pick up. This right here, I will put my name and rubber stamp it 100%. GaspOfficial.com, BetterBodies.com, GAS15 to get you some 15% off. Again, when we're talking eccentric training, we want to make sure that yes, we're lowering the weight, but we want to make sure we maintain joint integrity, because if you keep dive bombing or if you keep dropping the weights real fast, there's going to be issues later on in life. There's going to be some tendon weakening. There's going to be some ligament weakening. And add to that the natural progression of age, and that's a recipe for disaster. Now, look, there's a difference between just dive bombing and overspeed eccentrics, because if you're using overspeed eccentrics, and I'm sure I'm going to get shot by a lot of people that follow Westside Barbell, if you're using overspeed eccentrics, the drop is still controlled. It is still very much controlled. But I know a lot of people that just drop down into their squat and don't control the downward motion. You can tell by a lot of Olympic lifters. I'm going to use them especially inside of this example. They don't control the eccentric in their squat. They go down, but you can tell it's a lot of control. That is an overspeed eccentric. That is something that develops power. That is something you can use sparingly, even to potentiate your workout before you get to the hypertrophy stuff. Granted, you got mobility, you got flexibility, you got all those modalities present before you do those overspeed eccentrics, okay? You don't want to go into those cold. But you can use those to help you out in a hypertrophy standpoint, okay? Speed work is another thing that uses a lot of overspeed eccentrics. Again, flexibility, mobility, those have to be addressed before you attempt any type of speed work with a barbell, okay? So now that we've gotten that out the way with as far as ligament and tendon integrity, just doing eccentrics keeps your movement integrity tight, all right? People get on me for doing half reps on YouTube and Instagram, and I'm like, whatever. But for me, that's my sweet spot, right? That's where I feel the most pressure on the muscle, so I want to keep it all there. But when I'm doing my eccentrics, nothing gets out of line. Like, it stays pretty much in the same line. If you were to draw a line from the top of the rep to the bottom of the rep, I pretty much stay locked in. So if you are a person that likes using eccentrics, you have to make sure that you keep your body in line with where it's supposed to go. And that's a good thing about lowering the weight slow, is that you don't really have the opportunity to get outside of your groove because you're so focused on movement quality. That's what I'm really trying to get to, is movement quality. Sorry if I get a little wordy. Is movement quality. eccentrics can help with that. So it's not to say that lowering the weight won't get you more muscle. It probably won't, it probably will. Science only exists to disprove, not necessarily to prove. I got that from Jeff Everson out of Planet Muscle one day. Eccentrics are around at this stage of the game for me and for many other people. You just want to protect your joints, and then you also want to protect the movement integrity so you don't get out of groove and you don't mess up any type of muscle, any type of tendon. Because you can lift weights forever. I mean, you can lift weights forever, but you have to have good movement quality and you have to have your tendons and ligaments intact, and I think that's where eccentrics come in. Now, in this study, he says, again, you should probably keep your eccentrics, and again, I agree with him. So when you see stuff like this, don't immediately just discard your eccentrics because a study says one thing. Again, science generally exists to disprove, not necessarily prove. Dorian Yates, Mike Mincer, Pete Sisko, old school name if you don't know him, all of those guys have told us we need to control our eccentrics. Not all of us are Tom Platts, okay? We don't have those tendons that just rebound like a rubber band. If I was to try to do a Platt squat, I would die, and my kneecaps would shoot across the room as I'm dying. So I don't do it. But what I do is I make sure I control that eccentric on the way down, and you know, if I'm getting to a sweet spot, I may even speed it up to the point where that lower half, where I'm lowering the movement, it may look like I'm dive bombing it, but I tell you 100%, I am controlling it, and it stays in that position where it needs to be. All right, that's what you want. You're doing eccentrics. If you're doing anything that's eccentric emphasized, you want to pretend that you have a line from the top to the bottom, and you need to stay within that line. Or if you veer off a little bit, not too much, but you want to keep that movement tight. Okay, so that's my take on eccentric training. That's my take on using eccentrics in training. I've never done eccentric only training like Arthur Jones used to do, because that's very hard in essence to do. But there are ways you can emphasize the eccentric if you train alone. Do some reverse bands, have someone count your reps, have someone help raise you on the concentric portion, but you want to make sure you're in a plate loaded machine, or you're on a Smith machine, something that's guided. All right, so quick talk. I hope you all use eccentrics in your training. Don't be afraid to dive bomb, but dive bomb with control, with control, with control, again, with control, because that's going to help you develop power and actually train for power. Even as bodybuilders, we need to train for power, because strength and power is the last thing that goes, and the stage ain't going to be there forever. So what do you have to help you out when you get stuck in a position? Strength, power, and also flexibility. Okay, so again, guys, train those modalities, keep eccentrics in your training, and keep making those gains. All right, hope this video provided you some value. If it did, please leave a comment. If it didn't, please leave another comment and tell me how I can improve. All right, y'all have a good one. You take care.